to our first meetup of 2018, Agile Connect. First of all, big thank you to Bright Pixel. Ricardo, thank you so much for inviting us, for having us. Introduce the team, which several of you already know. So David, myself, Jóni, that is here and will make one of the presentations, Marco, and Nuno. So we have, we'll take this opportunity to share with you two events. One of those are this workshop, which will happen in Lisbon and Porto, January and February. We have a discount for Meetup members. You can use the code, which is about team design for the DevOps and effective software systems. And the other one is about XP 2008, which will happen from 21 to 25 May. And you can Google it, find more information. That's it. So for today, our agenda, we have two talks. The first one, do's and don'ts when hiring agile teams by Jóni. Then we will have a small break, and we will follow with Tastery MindTime, what they don't teach you about how to use your thinking by Celeste here. Thank you so much. And we will close at more or less 9. Asking some support from you too regarding talks. If you want to share something with us, your experience, some talk, or if you know someone that would like to do it, please bring to us. Space for having us on our Agile Connect meetups. Know if you want to having us on your company, on your space, please let us know. And feedback, which is quite important and the best way to improve. Please give us feedback. We will share some papers in the end that you can fill and give us feedback about the meetups and how we should and can improve. So just the last point, the next meetup will be at Itachi at 6th of February. It will happen on Amorello Shopping Center. And it will be on about World Retrospective Day, which is quite interesting. You can Google it for more information. Basically, it's a global coordinated effort to share the power of retrospective. So come and share with us the power of retrospectives. And that's it, so we can start. Thank you so much for coming once again. This is the place where you can contact us. So we can start, Jóni. Okay.
Just change. You have put the others. First time is the host.
Yeah, it's my first time as well.
Não? Eu vou deixar aqui usar o nome depois troco. Então pronto, vamos usar mais fácil com isso. Sorry guys, this is just need to change something here quickly before starting, which is just the full screen. It's a lot easier. Okay, good evening everyone. So I'm Jóni. I believe some of you already know me from the meetups or from other series. And today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about hiring agile teams. What kind of concerns do we have or not to have? What kind of different things should we be doing when hiring agile teams? And giving some tips and sharing a little bit of what has been my experience in this field in the last few years. So just for me to have an idea of the audience, how many of you do participate directly in hiring agile people, like doing interviews, taking part of the decision, or defining the role? Anyone here? Okay, quite a few. Great. This is not. Okay. So when I first started hiring agile teams, I would say probably 5 years ago, I was wondering at the beginning, what is this thing about Agile, about Scrum, all the buzzwords we were hearing. And at the time I was getting a lot of different messages from hiring managers, from different companies, from the market in general. And I started to realize that there was like a lot of different versions about what is Agile, what is Scrum, and how teams should be doing it. To be honest, I've been hiring Agile in 3 different companies so far, and I never did it the same way. I've been adapting the way I do it, and at the beginning it was pretty much the same way I always did. So I was just telling people you will be part of an Agile team. At the time, the teams were doing Scrum 2-week sprints, and in my mind, Scrum was about 2-week sprints and not much more than that. So yeah, daily stand-ups, all the ceremonies, all that kind of stuff. But at the time, I didn't get the mindset that is behind all this, and so I didn't think about the changes we should been doing in the hiring process. So nowadays I have a completely different idea of what it is, and so I've been adapting the way I've been doing things. I think you're pretty much all familiar with this kind of process. This is a normal, regular recruitment process that most companies do. So there's a need. The hiring manager will say, we'll meet with the recruiter or the HR person saying, look, we need this role with this kind of requirements. Then the person will advertise the job, will probably ask for, try to find some candidates, gather some applications, screen them, and then making a short list, delivering to the hiring manager. There's 1 or 2 interviews or whatever are the technical tests, and then there's an offer or a rejection. So yeah, then I started to think what in the middle of this process could be changed in order for me to be more agile and trying to use Agile in the hiring process. And then I realized that I think probably until 2015 or so, I haven't had any look at the Agile Manifesto. So I was hiring Agile people without even knowing what it is, what are the values and everything. So this is the background picture from the Agile Manifesto, as you probably recognize. And I gathered 3 of the 4 main values as the ones that I think we can easily adapt to a lot of different situations, different contexts, and different business fields. Not necessarily just recruitment, but with recruitment is one of these cases. So I think the first one is the most important one, to be honest, and the one that we could easily apply to most of the steps in a recruitment process. Okay. Then the second one for me, in terms of and talking about recruitment reality and hiring people, it's much more about making a collaboration between the person or the team that is making recruitment and also the team or the hiring managers, so the people that will be working with the guys or girls that we are hiring. Normally and traditionally, it's just about headcounts, filling roles for a specific number of vacancies that were budgeted in the beginning of the year, and there's not much of a collaboration between the 2 parts. And then one of the main things, which is responding to change and adjusting our behavior and the way we do things to what our client needs. And when I mean client, we always work to a client. It could be most of the times an internal client, but it's still a client, and your goal, your job is to respond to their needs. So, just to give you a brief idea of some 4 or 5 ideas of what I consider important when hiring agile people, and before we go to each steps and more specific things and try to see what we can do to improve this. So I think, first of all, it needs to be interactive. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. It's not agile. And in my opinion, it needs to be always based mostly on behaviors. It's the best way to predict success, to predict how people will act in the future. More than theory, more than previous experience, and all that kind of stuff. Also, if we are not trying to continuously improve what we are doing, we are not being agile. So, trying to put always all the metrics in place, and the metrics can be different from company to company, but a lot of metrics like time to hire, quality of hires, a lot of things can be done within this hiring space. Another really important thing, feedback loops. Recruitment processes tend to have feedback in the end of the process, and normally it's a really vague feedback. It's not specific, it's not clear, so we normally just tell people you'll move forward to the next step of the process, or you have been rejected, without giving much of an explanation. As I mentioned in the third value of the slide before, try to find a way of having shorter recruitment cycles, so delivering value to the client faster, and whenever possible, always try to have face-to-face conversations and in-person communication in all steps of the way. It's the best way of being agile and giving feedback, trying to understand the context and engage with people. So looking now a little bit at the specifics of a traditional hiring process. The first step normally after gathering the requirements and the kind of role we are looking for is to post a job advertisement to gather some applications. And what we normally see, and if you go to a job website, a jobs website to see what kind of agile vacancies we can find out there, you will see a lot of things that, in my opinion, they don't match with agile thinking. And when you look at a job description, for example, it's much more focused on individual tasks and skills and experience instead of the contribution you will be making for a company, the value you should add to a team. It doesn't make sense. It's not agile. So you can be spreading the message wrong. You say, I'm hiring an agile developer, and when you look at the requirements and at the role, what you will be doing, you don't see nothing related to agile, even if you put there all the buzzwords. So the most common things that I normally see is anti-pattern requirements. You can still find, curiously, a lot of job advertisements with asking for Prince 2 certifications for Scrum Master, things like that. So if you're hiring agile teams, make sure you don't do this kind of mistakes. Even if you're a recruiter or an HR person or whatever, and you're trying to hire people, even if you don't feel comfortable with all the agile world and the mindset and everything, for sure you'll have someone on your team, a technical person, a Scrum Master, whatever, that can help you write the job description or at least review it and say, look, you're passing the wrong message to the market. Let's redo it. So this is just small things that we should adapt right from the beginning of the process. I don't know if you guys stopped to think about first impressions. Have you guys realized that you probably made the first impression of your current company on the first contact for a recruitment process, right? So you applied for the job, or you have been contacted, and that's the first impression, and you will start building an image of the company, okay? And this will influence all the relationship. If you spend 5 years there, this will influence the way you will see the company, the way you will act in the company. So there are a lot of different ways of making a good first impression. And one thing I see mainly in technical roles, like software developers, testers, DevOps people, is things like, I applied for a job, I'm a developer, and straight away I have an automated system that just sent me a technical test for me to do, to assess my technical skills. You can see a lot of companies doing that, and in my opinion, it's not, I don't want to say it's wrong, but it doesn't comply with the agile thinking and mindset. And why? It's just because you're putting a number on a person and saying you're just one more that applied for a job, just make a test. I want to make sure that you're really good. And the test probably is not really assessing what the person will be doing in the future in most of the cases. So what I always try to do and recommend to people is, first thing to do is engage with them. Have a phone call at least, a 15-minute phone call where you can just, set expectations, try to see what they are looking for in this new job, why they applied, set expectations also about what do you want from them, what do you expect in the hiring process, what are all the steps of the way, so you'll be in line and the person that is applying can try to find a way of matching your expectations and getting the role. Otherwise, most candidates don't really know what the company is looking for. They have seen the job ad, but they know what is the role, but they don't know nothing specific. They don't know what you're valuing during the process, during interviews or whatever. And I don't see any bad consequence in telling people, look, I'm hoping that you would do this, this, and that during the hiring process. If you're not capable of doing, you can mention specific things. In my case, we always try to find people doing some, in terms of technical roles, doing some agile practices and extreme programming practices like TDD, for example. And this is something that I look for people, and I say from the beginning, look, one of the concerns we have is the way you do tests in your code. If you're able to do test-driven development or not, or at least if you care about unit tests or not. If you're just doing just putting the code in, don't mind about tests, you're not passing the recruitment process. So we set expectations just from the beginning, and I think this is what most companies should try to do. And this way you're also trying to demonstrate that you live agile and you're giving feedback, you're being honest with them and setting expectations. So, interviews is probably the most common step in a recruitment process. So everybody does interviews, all the companies do it. And I don't have nothing against it, to be honest. I think just there's different ways probably rather than the most common ways. The most common interviews are based on theory, just to see if you know some design patterns or whatever, if you know the theory of what your job normally is. And they don't focus on if you actually are able to do the job or not. You can know all the theory. Probably if you talk to a recent graduate that just came out of the university, he will be able to respond to a lot of theoretical questions, and a person with a few years experience probably will miss some of them. And it doesn't mean that the second is worse than the first. So this kind of details are important. So trying to look for mindset, trying to look for behavior, instead of just theoretical knowledge. Although it can be important in some cases, I'm not saying that it doesn't work at all or you don't need to assess it in any way. And other really important thing for me is trying to create a collaboration environment. Agile is about collaboration. It's about collaboration between teams and clients. And in most interviews, you see almost like a panel, one person, two people, three, and it looks like it's just one way. It's the company assessing the candidate's skills or capability of doing the job, and it doesn't look, or at least I think most candidates doesn't feel like it's the other way around too, that they are assessing the company. So try to, if you're doing interviews and even if it's based on theory, try at least to create a collaborative environment so they feel more comfortable and they can show their potential. Sorry. So just to summarize a few things I've talked already, okay? So the main differences between traditional interviews and agile interviews are these ones. So experience and skills is the focus on traditional, mindset and behavior in agile. Collaboration is also a focus instead of just one-way approach. At least I think, don't really focus on certifications, for example, things like that. It's my opinion that they don't say that the candidate is able to do the job properly or not. I've seen a lot of Scrum Masters, Agile coaches without any certification, and on a daily basis, on working with the teams, they are much better with a lot of people with a lot of certifications. So it's, in my opinion, it's not the most important thing. One big difference also, and I'll talk to you in more detail about this, is normally, traditionally, HR or leadership, like hiring managers, are the ones involved in the recruitment process, making the decisions, knowing the candidates. In my opinion, in an agile environment and an agile recruitment process, the team should be involved. There's no way you will take a decision of putting someone joining a team without the team knowing it, the team accepting that. And then the feedback, of course, as I mentioned, and I'll talk a little bit in more detail also about how to give feedback. So one approach that I use currently in my current company is, instead of just doing the traditional interviews, we put them to work. Not a lot of times, because not a lot of amount of time, a huge amount of time, because we understand that people normally have a job. They cannot waste one full day coming to the company for us to assess their abilities. But what we do is, for example, for technical roles, we always pair program. So we invite the candidate, he comes to the company, he will be with 2 developers in a room for 2 hours. They will have an exercise they will be working on, and that way we can assess the candidate's technical ability, because he will be writing code and solving problems. We can assess how he or she interacts with the team, how he accepts new ideas, or if they have different perspectives, perhaps how is he dealing with that. So in my opinion, it's a much more rich approach, and probably in the same amount of time you will get much more information about the person, and the person also will get a lot more information about the company and the way you work, instead of just doing a normal interview. For non-technical roles, there are also different roles, and I've experienced this in 2 different companies already. For roles like Scrum Masters, Product Owners, Business Analysts, for example, in my opinion, the best approach is always to put them to work in scenarios, real scenarios. So we can always give them real scenarios to interact with 2, 3, 4 people in the team, and in 1 hour and a half, you'll see how that person would respond to a real scenario that your Scrum Masters and Product Owners deal every day. in your company. So role playing, it's really a good help when hiring non-technical roles. Then, as I mentioned before, after they pass through all these recruitment steps, it's time to take a decision, right? So instead of just hiring, of having the hiring manager taking the decision together with HR, we need to involve the team, or at least all, assuming that the team was involved in the recruitment process. We had real developers or product owners doing interviews, pairing with the candidates. They need to be involved. Otherwise, it doesn't work it, and there's no success of a new joiner without having team support. This way, if the team will take part of the decision, the onboarding will be much easier because they already know the candidate. He has their support because they assessed the technical and all the other behaviors, so they know what to expect from the new person. So in the long run, this will lead to much more successful agile teams and people staying at your company a lot more time than probably the average. Feedback. This is one, or probably the most important thing for me. I guess real agile people love feedback. Otherwise, why are we trying to do shorter cycles, always trying to get feedback from the clients? So if it applies to software development, why are we not applying to recruitment as well? So what I recommend here is, instead of just doing the yes or no on each step of the process, I always give specific feedback to candidates, and this is really what we do. This is really what we do. So if they made a technical exercise and it was reviewed by our guys, then I will send the specific comments to the candidates. I could sometimes put some pieces of the code and say, look, this would be how good looks like for us, and this is what we were expecting. And we do this in all steps of the process. And for non-technical roles, we do the same. We say, look, you were good at this part, but you feel you're not so comfortable doing this or that on this particular scenario. This way, you're not just telling them, yeah, you're rejected, and you're passing a good image, and this is employer branding, because they will spread the word about your company, about your recruitment process. I had, in the last few years, a few people coming back to me, so reaching me and saying, look, I just know your company because I have a friend that was in a recruitment process with you guys, and although he was not selected, he really recommended the company. So this is the impact these small things can have on hiring people and hiring good people. Then, one really important thing is fast delivery. Otherwise, it's not agile, right? So how can we ensure fast delivery within a recruitment process? There are different ways, but looking at the traditional ways of doing recruitment, most companies, what they do is they start with a specific number of applicants in the first step of the process. They then reduce to a smaller number, reduce again, and they will end up with like 3-4 people in the last step of the process, and then compare them and taking a decision with that person. In my opinion, if you are lucky enough to find the right person, and that person is the first one you had in the process, just hire them. If you have it clear what you really want from the person, what kind of behaviors, what kind of experience, and they match what you want, Why to wait for knowing more people, putting more people in the process? This is spending money to your company. If you're doing more interviews you do, you're spending money to your company. Your time is money, your employees and colleagues' time is money. So what I always try to do, regardless of the process, is we have it clear what we want, and we don't get a lot of candidates to compare between themselves. If we have one that fits what we want, we hire them. There's no need for hesitations. Then, looking at the process and the way we can give a bit of structure and look at the dynamics of, on a daily basis, of a recruitment team, for example. So there are, looking at Scrum, for example, and I will just compare Scrum and Kanban because are probably the two most common approaches. Looking at Scrum, we have different ceremonies that can easily be applied to a recruitment team, for example. And I'm not doing this right now because at the moment I'm kind of a one-man show. I don't have a whole team, but I had it in the past, and we were doing some of these things. So you can do planning meetings, for example, in the beginning of the process. You then can define acceptance criteria for the role. You're just doing the same things, but in a different context. You can define who does what in the team, who does which in each interviews. All that kinds of things can be done on a planning. You can even use things like planning poker to estimate if hiring a DevOps engineer, it's more expensive and takes more time than hiring a software engineer. It's just a matter of thinking about all the possibilities, and you can do all this kind of stuff. And this way you can get estimations, and then delivering value has a consequence faster to your clients. You can use, of course, the daily stand-up meetings are the easiest one to do. So it's just to gather your team, and you can update all the team with how things are going with the recruitment process, how candidates are doing, if a requirement changed, what should we do, should we change something in the process or not. So you can discuss all these little things in a daily stand-up meeting, for example. You could do retrospectives in the end of the process to see what could have we done differently, for example. So we are continuously improving. Then you can use things like Kanban, which is a different approach. I think Scrum is more for realities where you have a few hiring needs, not big volumes, and you have different roles, so you can compare them, estimate between on the complexity or between on your experience as well. And then you can do a Kanban approach where you can have just a backlog of processes, for example, and then based on priorities, you would need to find out who defines priorities. Could be someone specific in the business, could be your manager, so it will depend from company to company for sure. But you can use this Kanban approach and say, look, I'm just focusing on this. This is the top priority. I'm not focusing in 10 vacancies at the same time because it's not doable. So this is what I recommend for high volume recruitments with really fast-paced environments, for example, where things are constantly changing. I've experienced this, and it's definitely the best approach to change things and reach the goals of your internal clients. So, wrapping up all of this, I guess the most important lesson you should take from here is the best way to hire agile teams is being agile too. There's no other way. And I'm talking about mindsets, not necessarily ceremonies or specific practices. That's the second step. You first need to get to the mindsets and then try to see what is better for your reality. Also take into consideration that here there is no one size fits all, so it doesn't work in the same way for all the companies, okay? And I believe some companies probably this doesn't work because they are, even in software development, they are not agile, although they say they do agile. So you need to really adapt and see what makes sense. It's just a matter of being creative. Continuous feedback, as I said before, one of the most important things, and then try to reach your goal, which is delivering high quality candidates to your hiring managers or to your teams, depending on the reality, okay? So that's it, guys. Thanks a lot, and I'm here for any questions you may have. Any questions?
I have an insight. Just
Okay, go for it.
when you said that about the Scrum ceremonies that you don't do it because you're a one-man show like hiring during the recruitment process, why not do one or two of the ceremonies with your internal clients and with the team that is supporting you in the process?
Great question. In fact, what I don't do like daily stand-ups, for example. What I do, I have meetings from time to time, not necessarily a regular cadence between the meetings with people, because in my current reality, we do consultancy. So we have different projects with different clients. So most of the time when I'm hiring, I'm continuously hiring people because we are in a growing phase. So I'm always looking for software engineers, for example. And when in the moment I'm hiring the person and the person is passing through the interviews, I still don't know what will be the project for that specific person. So what we share always the vision, the practices, because they are all common between projects. But in my current reality, I cannot say, look, you will work for this team, so I'm involving always this team in the recruitment process. What happens is I involve a lot of the people from different teams, and that's it, because we have the same culture in the all projects and the same kind of practices and everything. So I do meet with them, I do try to set and manage their expectations and try to get their feedback, but not as a daily stand-up. When I mentioned daily stand-up, I think it works, at least in the past for me, it works much better with a proper recruitment team with 4 or 5 people doing recruitment, because we help each other, we know people, so you can try to share a bit your pains, what's blocking you, if there's a way to unblock you, that kind of stuff. Okay? Any more questions, I think? Yeah.
So you actually said before that you work with Scrum on previous jobs. My question is, what was the biggest barriers of implementing Scrum practices on recruitment?
What was the biggest barriers?
Yeah.
Okay. To be honest, I think it was getting the hiring managers on board. It was tough because this was something that the HR team, the recruitment team decided to do. We were seeing how the software teams were working, and we said, okay, we can apply some things to our job, and we started doing ourselves first between the hiring managers. And I think that the biggest challenge was to get them on board in terms of some of the hiring managers at first they weren't accepting or believing that you're doing agile in recruitment. It doesn't make sense. So probably, at least I think in the beginning, the biggest barrier was that, trying to sell the idea that we could be more agile during recruitment, and that will help them in getting faster candidates and better quality candidates. That was probably the biggest one, yes. And also, when we first used Scrum, and then we changed to a Kanban approach, because it was really, when I say fast, it's really, really fast environment, like hiring 200 people per year. So a lot of vacancies, a lot of things changing, a lot of growth. So Scrum was not ideal to estimate anything. So yeah, we tried, we failed, and then we adapted and started using more Kanban approach. Okay. I think someone had.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there was a question.
So I was just wondering if you're, when you said it's important to have team members involved in the recruitment process, would you think it's more important to have people who do the same thing? So if you're recruiting a Scrum Master, you would want other Scrum Masters? Or
Yeah.
do you want people from the team that he's going to join, or she's going to join, to see if they're actually going to work well together?
Yeah. Yeah, and for example, if I'm hiring a Scrum Master for a team that doesn't have a Scrum Master yet, for example, what I would do is to involve some people from the team. So I always try to get different perspectives. So it's not just about having a Scrum Master, hiring Scrum Masters, and it's not also just about having developers hiring Scrum Masters, because developers may have a perspective of what a Scrum Master does, right? But probably they will miss some things in terms of the global vision of the role. So I always try to put team members, and if a Scrum Master, if there's no Scrum Master on that team, I would bring a Scrum Master from a different team, but it's in the same reality, he knows what we are looking for. So yeah, I would do that, and I do that actually. Okay. Ladies first, sorry.
Have you ever recruited someone and after a few days that person actually was not the right person for the job? What was the lesson learned that happened?
Yes, to be honest, I think it was a while ago. It happened several times in my career, but I don't think I've done it using this kind of approach. It never happened using this kind of approach. But yeah, it happened already. It's just, I'm not doing this kind of approach for 5 years. I'm doing this in the last probably 3 years, and it was an adaptation that I was doing a long time. So the way I do it today is not the same way I was doing 2 years ago. So I took some lessons learned and adapted things. But you can always have like casting, I don't like the word, but casting mistakes if you're hiring a person that doesn't fit the job. It can always happen. We are human, so people that take decisions on hiring sometimes will be wrong, as in everything in life. We just need to accept that and try to deal that in the best possible way, and try to create mechanisms and processes to avoid that as much as possible.
You answered your question.
Oh, okay. Okay. Anyone has more questions? No?
Sorry, I was
Sure.
yeah. Let me think how I can phrase it. You talked about collaboration process and how you set expectations about those who are in the interview to really make questions and be involved and be curious about the company, the position, the team they are going to work with. From my experience, and looking at you, I'm probably the oldest one. I already have 30 years of this type of stuff, and also recruiting. And it's really a disappointment, because when we really, even though we set expectations to the candidates, saying, well, be prepared to do good questions, prepare yourself to this interview, check with your friends and your colleagues about this company or about this specific project. And even though we do this, when they come to the interview, it's very seldom that they do good questions.
Okay, yeah, that's...
But typically what they ask is the conditions and how quick will they have an answer about the process. And it's quite frustrating,
Yeah.
And let me add something more. My experience is not only in Portugal, but internationally, and unfortunately, this is typical from the Portuguese population. So my challenge here for you all and for us all is to talk about this with our colleagues and tell them how important it is to make good questions and be prepared and collaborate in interviews.
Yeah, it happens a lot. To be honest, I think I don't have the numbers in my head, but it's a small percentage of people that, although we set expectations from the beginning, we say what we are expecting, sometimes I feel that sometimes people are just not capable of, and that's fine. It's a matter of, you know, having experience, the right skill set, behaviors, and everything. But sometimes I think that people also just don't care. And in this industry, we know that, you know, software engineers, they can find a job like this. So sometimes they can have that luxury of saying, I don't care, with this company I'll find another job and I could get more money. So it happens sometimes that I set the expectations and say, look, in this first exercise you're going to do, one of the important things that the team will push for you to do is try to do test-driven development. I know that you don't have experience because in the Portuguese market, this is almost no one has really good experience in TDD, for example. But what I normally tell people is, look, we do this on a daily basis. So although we know that you don't have this experience, if you have the mindset and you investigate a little bit about how to do it, what's different from the way you do it, you can easily adapt. And what we will be evaluating during the process is how easy or not are you adapting your way of working to ours. And sometimes people, they say, okay, I'll try to investigate a little bit, try to see some more things. Then they come in and it seems that they haven't done it. I'm not sure if they do it or not, but most of the time they haven't done it. It's probably because they are not used to it, and I understand that. But sometimes I feel that there's not a real effort to do that. But that's fine. I think, in my opinion, if they feel that, they need to feel that we are the right company for them, the same way we need to feel they are the right candidates for us. So things need to match between the two parts, and if it's just one way wanting the other, it won't work. Yeah, but I totally agree with you, and with my experience, although it's not 30 years, it's like 8 years, but it's, yeah, I feel the same. Okay. Yeah.
Sure.
You mentioned the TDD learning curve and learning how to do TDD, real TDD properly, like changing from waterfall to agile. Takes some time.
Takes time.
Takes time.
Sure.
It's a paradigm shift. And my question is, people that didn't match all the required skills but had the attitude were hired, or this process kind of helps eliminate them as soon as possible because we are just trying to make a match?
Okay. Yeah. To be honest, I think most people we've hired so far didn't have proper TDD abilities, because most of them were working here. They knew the concept, they know what it is, but we hired them because they showed during the process that they would be able to adapt themselves to this way of working and to this approach. So we felt while they were doing pair programming, we felt, okay, they are not totally comfortable. Sometimes they start just coding without thinking about the tests. But if one of our guys say, look, let's think about this first, let's try a TDD approach, and if the person says yes and really tries to do it, and you see, okay, it's not right there, but he's trying and he's doing something, yeah, probably has the right mindset. It's just a matter of discipline and practice. So yeah, most of the people we've hired didn't have a lot of experience on TDD, just a few, and the ones that worked that worked abroad, those ones had a little bit more experience on TDD, but it's not like a mandatory thing. And if you look at the job advertisement, we don't put TDD as a mandatory thing. We explain them that it's an approach that we use on a daily basis, and he or she will need to adapt to it, but it's not something that you need to have experience or X years of experience doing TDD, for example. And this applies to most of the things.
Okay, so other skills also, not only I was
Yeah, it's just an example.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but that's a good example because the learning curve is quite big. We have people in the office, and sometimes after 4 or 5 months they still are not doing TDD properly, they are getting pushed from the team, and yeah, they will get there eventually, and hopefully.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so we are done, right? Thank you. Thank you, Johnny. We'll make a quick break, about 10 minutes, maybe
Yeah.
8 and 10. We can
Otherwise,
restart, please.
sorry for taking so
Yeah,
much
no
time.
problem. It is important, so thank you.
Thank you.
Depois deram uma tarefa, eles faziam os treinos, chegar aí, fui num dia, fiz uma série de duas ou três vezes, fiz duas, para fazer três, era tipo uma técnica e uma técnica sobre e essa resposta daí mas testamos, mas fazemos certamente.
É mais fácil assim, podemos necessitar, não é? É mais fácil.
Sim, mas está aqui outra sala.
Por exemplo,
Mas lembrando bem desse também fui ao esta mesa pequena servia? Servia. Se quisesse, mas nós podemos deixar uma mesa ali até lá. Vai ser uma mesa grande. Não tem problema, mas arranjamos uma mesa que eu posso usar para ficar permanente. Grande. Precisa de ajuda, precisa de ajuda. Tudo se resolve.
É que assim, depois de ser ajudar, meio Querem ajuda?
Já passou?
Não vai sair, se resolve.
Ficar aqui, depois passamos. Mas bem, acho que estava cheio, então.
Deixa-me fazer, era a minha e tinha depois.
Eu ia lá sim.
Descansar. Dá mais uma vez que não quer.
Está tudo pronto.
Quando é que foi quem fizeste? Sim, ao pé da Martins do Mal. Ok. Exatamente. Ok. Ok. Não lembro também o que é que vai acontecer. Lá. É que eu tenho muito lá com outros animais e justamente nesse sítio. Sim. Depois fizemos um espaço aberto, tirar fotos da cidade e tudo. Eu acho que é bom. Ou qualquer outra unidade. Teu nome mesmo? Joaquim Batista. Tudo bem? Ok. Faz o quê? Escrita técnica. Ok. Isso seria. Ok. Escrita técnica. Isso é fácil. Ok. Também acontece volta e volta para mais complicado do que as pessoas tinham para fazer quando a fizeram, quando começaram. Claro. É fácil estar numa situação em que há mais aqui, mas és uma das que tem parte De escrita técnica do ano de desenvolvimento de software? Não. Ok. Ok. Está a trabalhar na frente.
E isso daí pode falar também com a parte de negócio, portanto, a ideia está para mim fechar o ciclo não sei coisas. Portanto, consegues ter feedback do que é que vai fazer. E está com acaba neste momento a tentar fazer a comunicação. Porque na verdade já é para a parte do negócio, não para a parte técnica.
Sim.
Porque na verdade a solução real é para a técnica.
Claro.
Porque é tal em detalhes, porque só consegues linhas técnicas de alguma maneira, porque o negócio funciona por certa maneira. Portanto, não consegues perceber uma coisa sem perceber outra. O que acontece é que a explicação ao nível do negócio é uma perspectiva diferente. É entendível por pessoas não técnicas.
Claro. E a tua escrita técnica abrange pessoas não técnicas, ou tem leitores não técnicos, ou leitores técnicos. Secundária são as não técnicas.
Vai haver pessoas que têm
documentos tradicionais podem ser manuais,
Are we ready to go for MindTime? Okay, that's nice. So thank you for staying. What I would like to share with you is something about MindTime. Okay? And before going any further, I understand that most of you are from Agile and work within Agile environments. Who doesn't here? Okay. So that's nice. So a few, but very good. Just to let you know about myself, so I've been working as a consultant and a facilitator since 2009. Before I was working in the corporate world, I worked for huge companies, either locally and internationally. And you can search my profile in the net and LinkedIn. I'm not going to spend time sharing with you that. But mainly I've been working on organizational development, a bit on HR, leadership development, executive development, all those areas related to people individually and within teams. And one of my biggest challenges was always to really see how people can collaborate better. And about 4 years ago, I was with these colleagues, and in the UK, and we were having these discussions about how people can collaborate better and what can motivate people to collaborate. And there was this huge discussion, and one of them just said that he found an answer to that on MindTime, and we said, what's MindTime? And he used one or two words to describe it. That was the most insightful, revolutionary, and open, kind of low-minded approach to how people behave, and helps us to understand better how people think, and also by doing this, what really triggers the motivation of people to collaborate. So I said, okay, I like it, I'm going to do more research about it. And I did. And I did search, and then I did very few search, because I'm going to give you now a clue, I'm a future thinker. So I did very few research because I'm not the person to do research, but I picked the phone and I called this guy, who is John Fury. He's one of the mentors of MindTime. He's British, but he was developing and doing research in the US with his fellow, Vincent Fortunato, and they have been doing this for already 20 years. And I found that MindTime has been established in the US very well, not only in the corporate world, but also in academies, universities, and in other spots in the community. And MindTime really goes into a deeper thing, that MindTime is a framework, it's a theory, and then a framework that has its principles on time. Okay? And time means past, present, and future. So what I'm going to share with you is the basics of MindTime. And I would like to highlight that while MindTime goes into this learning, to learn how people think, and tries to match the thinking patterns that each of us have into the past, present, and future, okay? It doesn't go into personality. We are not talking about personality traits. We are talking about what triggers, your inner triggers to behaviors. Okay? So MindTime, it's a theory that helps us to understand how people think and what motivates people to collaborate. Basically, it's the definition of it. This is the framework that we use. This is our reference, past, present, and future. And when we look at this framework, we see past thinkers, who are the people that really go into certainty, meaning that these people think basically on data, on research, on certainty. Okay? So, and they always look for what can be known. They really struggle for knowledge and to build on it. Then we have the present thinkers. They go for probability. What can be done? Are the guys that really do things. They lack structure. They know that there is a plan. They follow the plan. They have the checklist. They do it. They follow it. And then we have the future thinkers. Those are the guys that go to the possibility. Okay, and these are the guys who really think, what's the opportunity there? What can I do? Okay, they envision other situations. They follow ideas. So these are the three biggest. These are the three patterns of thinking that all of us have. What's important here is that even though each of us might have one reference, one pattern of thinking, as I told you, I am a future thinker, but I am a future present. I'm not a pure future, meaning that I mix very well these two thinking styles. However, I also do past, because every one of us do the three of them, because it's really our operating system. We couldn't survive if we didn't do past. Past is related to certainty. Past is related to safety. It's related to risk avoidance. That's what motivates past thinkers. So in my case, even though I go first with the future and then with the present, which is my preferred thinking pattern, eventually I am past as well when I need to, as a survival kit. And it's the same rationale for the other thinking patterns, okay? Some of you might be pure future or pure past, okay? But even though you go into the others according to the context. So by saying this, and considering that there are the three types of thinking patterns, as we call it, we travel in this triangle. Some of us can travel in a more intensity or less intensity, but we still are moving in these three patterns, okay? So by saying this, I'm going to ask you, after I show you the next slide, I will show it to you after making you this challenge. I'm going to show you a slide with some words that define each of the past, present, and future branches, principles. And I would like to read it, and then think for yourselves which one really relates to you in your most pure way of thinking. Okay? When you're in your freestyle, which is the one that really, this is mine, I am future, I'm present, no, I'm past. Okay? Are you done? Yeah? Who are the past here? Okay. Present? Okay. And future? Okay, nice. So we have, you don't know. That's nice. I like it. Why don't you know? What's troubling you?
Seems nice.
See yourself among the three of them. Yes, you might be sure. You know why? Because there's a hub there. Some people can, even though we have preferred ones, there are some people that their preferred is the exact mix of the three. And we call them the integrated, or the hubs. And that's why within MindTime we have 10 different archetypes. Okay? Even though we have the three principles, we can have 10 archetypes. Because it's really related to the blend that we can do with all of them. Okay? So this is nice. Just for you to ask you a question. And this is going a little bit quicker, but I think you're ready to that. Very few are past here, right? 3. 1, 2, yeah? And another one that I thought was in this area. Only the 3 of you, yeah? And we have here a large amount of present thinkers and fewer future thinkers. When you think about this mixture, if we were a team and if we needed to collaborate, how do you think this team would work? So 3 pasts.
It would be great because we have all the features.
We have all the features, yeah? Yeah?
We just need to collaborate.
Yeah, you just need to collaborate. But we have a huge amount of presence that are the ones that follow the plan and that stick to the plan and they really look for harmony and sustainability and all that.
So they need somebody that's a risk seeker or can make a plan. So they can follow.
Yeah? What else?
Probably it's going to be waterfall.
Probably it's going to be waterfall. Wow.
Yeah.
Can you tell us more about it?
Well, just in my humble opinion.
Yeah, we are just
brainstorming.
Yeah.
One of the Agile principles is responding to change over following a plan.
Yeah.
And if we have the majority of people that will tend to plan and follow a plan, then maybe we will follow this majority in and follow a plan.
Yeah.
I would
Yes.
also think that having past and future balance would be nice if you think like an investment. You have to understand the lower risks as also the higher risks. Then a way to manage that, but there is a problem that is the collision of vision. If you have like a company, you have to put everybody on the same line. So how do you do that? Having so different opinions to plan a feature, like, because if we have like a strategic part of the company using future and past, they would always fight, and there wouldn't be a plan for the present to
implement.
do as well.
Yeah, these are very good insights, and yours as well. It's wonderful because it really says that the present thinkers are more related with the waterfall processes. But still, within the Agile teams, we need the present thinkers as well. No doubts about it. So there's the balance here. How can we get the best balance within the Agile teams using the MindTime? And before going further, just to give you some more information, we are doing MindTime in many companies to support them in implementing and following up with the Agile teams. For example, Google in the US is already partnering with us to do all this stuff. Not only in recruitment. Where's Johnny? And it was nice to hear you because you talked about behaviors, and I was sitting there and said, okay, behaviors and then thinking styles, because it's getting quite supportive when not only in recruiting but also when they prepare for the interactions and for the meetings and all that. And we are also doing MindTime, for example, in universities, where we try to, we are now doing the study, and I'll show you a slide in a bit, and to support this university, the Santa Clara University, to reduce the churn that we have on MBAs, because people were leaving the MBAs, and they needed to analyze why, and we are doing MindTime there, and we are finding some differences between the profiles and the thinking styles of the students and the thinking style of the teachers. And it's amazing to see how, by knowing the thinking styles of your students and by knowing your own thinking style as a professor, you can adjust so that you can have better results. And also we are doing this in Groningen, in Holland. It's where the MindTime Foundation is settled since early 2017, and there's a big community, and there's where we are doing MindTime in the community to support the community, to prepare the population to digitalization, to see what's the MindTime profile of the population, and then adjust how to develop the community to be more digital. And it's amazing to see the results of it. Well, by saying this and going a little bit further, it's important to say that when we talk about motivation is really triggered by our thoughts. Everything begins with a thought. And you may remember, and sometimes you say this, what was in my mind to do this? And I don't know how many of you have kids, but we commonly say, what was in your mind to do that? But then we go ahead. So what's in your mind? So everything begins with a thought. And if it is a past, a present, or a future thought, then you adjust your behavior to that. It's quite amazing. This is not rocket science. even though there's lots of research and lots of studies, and you can see these studies in the internet, in our page, but still, we call it human engineering, basically, because it really drives a better understanding of how people think and then what motivates people to do something. And what we know till now and we discovered is that past thinkers are motivated by risk avoidance. Present thinkers are motivated by normalization. And future thinkers are motivated by reward. And reward here are not perks, okay? They are motivated by the opportunity of doing different things very regularly. Okay? So this is what motivates them. It's this way of doing it. Olha a bateria. So you can find your profile by going into the site of MindTime and do your own profile. There's a sample of it, and you can have your profile back to you. You can do it now, but I will ask you not to do it now because we are going to test it out with cards. So I have here some cards, and I would like 3 of you to come here to play some cards. Who would like to join and play some cards? My hub. Now we're going to find if he's really a hub or not. This is a way that we use so people can find their theme style. It's fun, and it really gives us lots of information to talk through and discuss when we are doing these with teams. We're just going to do a sample, a quick one, but it's nice for you to see what's going to happen. So for you, what I would like you to take that. And for each of you, yeah, you can use it. Take it. Okay? You can take it. Yeah? And I would like you to mix the cards so that we are sorted. Yeah. Yeah, sorted. In the meantime, if you want to check your profile while they're doing this, you can check it. Okay? I allow you to do it. So after you sort it, yeah.
Can we place like bets on them?
So once you're ready, I will ask you to read the words that are in the cards and do 2 different blocks. One are the words that really relate to you and the words that don't relate with you at all. Okay? At all, no one and yes in the other one.
I started with one.
You choose here, you have the words here, and then you choose, process oriented, yes I am. Realistic, yes I am. Impulsive, no I'm not. Analytical, yes I am. Inflexible, no I'm not. Judgmental, no I'm not.
For all the cards.
For all the cards. It will take about 2 or 3 minutes.
Okay.
But I would like you to take one thing that is important. Some of the words, when you translate them to Portuguese, they have a bad connotation. For example, opportunistic. In our minds, we really do this. No, I'm not opportunistic. But please read that word as a word that the one that really looks for opportunities. So there are not bad words there. Okay, they are all good words. For example, there's a word that it's chaotic. Sometimes people don't like to be named chaotic, but we are. I am chaotic. Okay, so it's a good word. So if you think that you are chaotic, please choose that word. Okay, go. Yes and no.
Can I be chaotic and organized?
You can be whatever you want. You have to live it. You have to live it. Já fizeram o vosso perfil? Did you find your profile? Agora, do bloco dos sims, quando concluírem, acho que isto vai dar a dizer. Yeah. So once you have your yes, you put your nose apart. Okay? Now it's getting worse. From the yeses, you need to choose the 12 most. And what about you that you try to discover your profile? Does it resonate to you? No? See? I don't have network. So when you're done now, you put the notes all together and just keep your 12 cards, the yes cards. Now it's the moment of discovery. They won't be the same anymore. Já está? No?
Pressure.
He's a hub, so he's trying to...
Almost there. Can I just... How much?
12. Yes? Okay. So now what I would like you to do is to turn your cards and spread them on the table. Just, yeah. Okay. If you want to I think you don't see it, but if you want to come further, it's nice to see, and let's talk a bit about it. So, wow. This is interesting because the blue ones are the future thinkers, the green ones are the present thinkers, and the red ones are the past thinkers. Oh. Okay? So what we see here is what? That these three guys are future thinkers. Okay? Mostly. Because, however, you have an equilibrium there. You have 6, you're right in the middle, 6 future and 3 past and 3 present. So probably you are close to the hub. But you and yourself are typically future thinkers. And let's imagine that the 3 of them work from the same team and they need to really collaborate within Agile team within this context. So they really needed to focus on this and what are the cautions they should have or what are the strengths that they have as a team. What would you say?
Plan,
Mm-hmm.
product conception,
Yeah.
discovery.
Yeah, product conception, discovery, but still they have abilities to stick to the plan, kind of, they can balance it, yeah? And do some analysis, yeah, you don't
What are the
but
red
they have
ones?
some-
What are the red ones?
This is past,
Past.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so what we would do in this workshop or in a masterclass would be then to go further in the cards and see, for example, what you were doing by discovering the wording and get a little bit information about that word specifically. For example, when you say that you are cautious, tell us about it. Give us a situation where you were cautious, so that we can understand in this specific context, for this specific role, what does it mean? Okay, so we would go further on each of the words and really go deeper and get more insight about it. Okay.
Basically, I'm a software engineer, and I learned to do things that I could sleep better on by night. So I do test-driven development. I do continuous iteration things the way I basically manage my builds and in a way that I can be more
Comfortable.
Yeah. No, more calm because I'm
Yeah.
stressed.
Yeah, but it's nice because you saw
I
the words
learned
that
this
the
from-
words that what's your name?
Ricardo.
Ricardo used the words. I want to be. I need to be cautious. I need to believe in. I need to sleep quiet, calm. So the certainty is a part in his. So these are his anchors to really support, because he's an engineer as well. So there's lots of stuff here you need to really.
I was not
build on that.
like that from the beginning. So I learned from my.
Yeah. It was a process,
Yeah.
but still you have a huge
Yeah.
amount of blues there. And we will go further into the others just to check out and have this conversation about the wording and see, okay, how we can build our collaboration, how we can move forward and stick to our plan, but really design the product, be adaptive, change when we need to do it and all that. Okay? So thank you. I'll keep them after. So now, if you want to discover your profile, you can do it. You can use the net to buy us. It's a 10 question survey. It's quite light. Of course, when we do it by a survey, we use 46 questions, so it's a huge amount of questions, but still the 10 there are quite okay to be used and really gives you some good hints about it. So let's now play a little bit about it. I have here the example of 4 different teams. For example, the team A, what can we see here from the team A, where we have most of the people in the future area?
Dreamers.
Yeah, dreamers. Yeah, they may have very good conversations and inspiring conversations, but they won't move, they won't do, they won't produce, for sure. Okay, that's a reality. So, if you look to the B team, it's a balance. So they might be pretty collaborative as well. So they will focus and they will be quite collaborative. The team C,
They will produce something.
they will do something, but not sure what, because the future thing is so big there that he won't even show up in the meetings. So yeah, they will produce something, but they will keep on producing it, the same thing all over. Okay? There won't be any innovation on there. And what about the D team? They are stuck. They are very academic. They are stuck. They are very good because they probably do lots of research, they know very well about things and all that, but they are stuck. Okay? So this is, and typically these are examples of typical agile teams, I can assure you. Okay? I can assure you. And the nice thing about it is that, okay, this is the situation, what can we do to improve? And what are our vulnerabilities, and what can we do about it to solve it, and to be more collaborative. Just as an information for you to share, because we are really running out of time. The Santa Clara University, the example that I was giving you, there's this class. This class has about 72 students, and you can see the distribution there. Okay? So there's a good distribution within the three styles there, though there's a huge amount of people in the past and in the present. The professor, it's a future thinker, okay, and it was situated, and he was struggling, and she was struggling with getting these people on board. I can tell you, it's amazing, the impact of this. I do some lecturing in MBAs and post-graduations. And as I told you, I'm really future present. And so, meaning that for me, past is okay, but I don't spend too much time doing research or reading research. I believe that there's research there, and I'm always thinking about what else can I do about it. It's my own way of doing things. And when I teach, I always go into discussions. Think about, give me your insights. Let's discuss about it. And if I'm not aware of these differences, I miss my past students. I even sometimes have very strong conversation. They give me very strong feedback because they don't feel I'm giving them the data they need to better understand. And I'm sure that the past thinkers here will go home and check more in detail what MindTime is. Because you guys need information. Okay, so go to the net and there's lots of information for you. I'm not going to give you that. Okay? But yes, that's true. And when you're teaching, it really makes a difference. Knowing, now what I do, I always do MindTime with my class before starting. I spend 1 hour of the class time to do MindTime. And I tell them why I'm doing that. So that even myself, I can adjust. Okay, you guys, you like data. I commit myself to bring you some more data. So that we can close the difference and do something different and be more effective. This is nice as well. This is when we did the validation for Portuguese. We already have all this stuff in Portuguese. We did that in 2016. And we covered about 461 people just to validate the questionnaire. And this population, we had about 80% from Portugal and 15% from Brazil and the rest from other palettes because we needed to test it out as well. And that's the image. So most of the people are mainly from the center. There are very few pure, see the present thinking. There's no pure present thinking. It's amazing. It can really gives us some other insights. Okay, so there's some questioning about it, and probably it says a lot about the way we do things around. I'm not going to go further, and it's only 460. Can you imagine? Come on, it was in 2016. It's scary. Okay, and this one it's very nice as well. We are doing some master classes in Holland, and also we did a TEDx presentation, and there was this question: the Dutch educational system does a good job preparing young people for the future. From a scale, the blue is strongly disagree, and the red one is strongly agree. You can see it and take your insights from it. It's amazing to see it.
X scale to say people. So people who had those attributes, past thinkers, love the system, and future thinkers.
Yeah. Okay. And there's this one as well. It was from the same audience. Artificial intelligence poses a real threat to humans. What do you think about this? So this is information that we are using not only to validate the framework, but also to support the ones that really want to do something about it. And to add. And this is true, this is where these guys are located.
They've done
Yeah, because there's a lot. There's lots of interest in Silicon Valley and California about MindTime, and everyone goes further on this. It's amazing the power, and in Holland as well, because Holland, as probably you know it. Holland really likes different things, so it's a very good hub to test things out, and that's why we decided to have the foundation in Holland, where it's easy to get people on board to test it out in different circumstances. It's amazing the work that they are doing with this. What about Agile? Where are we using MindTime? We are using MindTime in team dynamics when we talk about culture, how this team wants to work together, any missing links, and video links as well. We are using it in RoleFit. Okay, we have very good information about the typical profiles for each of the roles within Agile teams as well. There's a tendency, there's a pattern. The cycle of collaboration as well. That's where we work with MindTime within Agile. The training of the Agile coach. Understanding the client. Okay, this is very important when we do MindTime to the client, so that we can quickly and quicker respond to the needs of the client and adjust the customer experience through MindTime. And this was amazing. We were doing this approach in Brazil for a financial services company, where they were very breakthrough in doing Agile. And we were doing till last year the MindTime approach, and they are really having very good results because they use MindTime for the customer experience surveys and all that, and they get very good information so that they can really adjust in a more quicker way the products and services they want to provide. Design. How does thinking style affect design of products? Okay. Understanding the relationship between the coach and the people, and messaging. How does thinking style affect messaging considerations within the 3 areas of Agile? So we are really doing it. In Portugal, we didn't do anything yet. We hope to do it soon, because we are now starting this communication. But let's see how things go. So if you would like to test it out, you are more than welcome to come and we talk with you. We can offer some tasteries, we do some master classes, we have a huge amount of services and products that we can put at your disposal as well. We have the book, we have the cards that we can use. Of course, we have our pages in internet and Facebook where we post many information. And as it is a foundation, it's very easy to reach us. Okay, we are a foundation. We truly believe in the power of foundations. So, thank you. Questions, insights? Sorry. I'm open to answer whatever I can.
What is the size of the team that you think this kind of approach it's best to be used with? Like, if you have a team with 20 people, first you will be more distributed in the triangle, right?
It depends on the team, on the individuals. It depends. But we can apply it, you see, we are using this in a community of people. For example, as I told you, we are doing this in Groningen, where we are sending the links to the profile, so all citizens will answer it with information about the age as well and gender, and then we are working it out. So size, it's not a problem. Size is not, it's the way we do it, we adjust to the size of the team.
I was thinking more about the way you can interact after the first interaction, how you can change what can you change to people more thinking about the future. Or it's not about the relationship you can see, it's what you can do to change it.
Yeah.
Because you have like 461 people that rehearsal you did. What could you do on those persons to change or to make it more?
Well, I think the thinking patterns won't change just like that. What we can do is adjust the strategies to reach those people so that they can be more dynamic in a way, more future thinkers in another way, but using tools, but not changing the thinking pattern, because it's not changeable. What we can do in this specific situation is invest in the kids, invest in children, so that they are educated differently, so then they can adjust the thinking patterns. Yeah. There's no magic around it. What we can do is really provide tools so that people can use them and really adjust the behaviors, but not the thinking pattern that won't change as that.
Yeah, I was wondering, you showed that the Portuguese were
80% Portuguese, 30% others.
Sure.
Okay.
Is that been done for like different countries, and can you kind of map cultures?
Yes.
Is that on the MindTime website, or?
I think there's a study with that information there. If you don't find it, ask me, because there is.
Okay.
There is with US, there is with France, which is very, very nice to see, and we have it with Singapore as well.
Okay. And what about gender? Does that mean?
No.
Okay. So there's no clear trends.
No. No, we didn't go till now. We didn't want to go to gender.
Okay.
Though we have some information, but we don't want to go to there still.
Because
if someone wants to get it, join us in our laboratory and do it.
Okay.
Because that's the way we work. Any of us, well, in this laboratory there's different people. There are designers, there are researchers, there are consultants like me, there are people from social organizations that will contribute within this MindTime Foundation. We can contribute with something. And for example, if you would like to do a study with the gender, there's lots of information, so it's up to you, build it, and let's share among the foundation and spread it. You know, it's something that no one now thought about doing it.
Are you kind of worried about controversy because you might deliver findings that are kind of culturally loaded, or?
I'm sorry, I missed the question.
Well, you might find kind of results that are uncomfortable to talk about. And it's
Yeah.
kind of you guys discuss that.
Yeah, but you know, sometimes that when you're clear about the basics of MindTime, there wouldn't be any uncomfortability about it.
Like, this is
Yeah,
how you
yeah,
self-express. And
Yeah.
One last question, please.
It's common to test. Imagine a team, as an agile team. It's common to do some kind of tests to solve some struggling problems on the team.
Yeah.
Because normally you could find some problems during the sprints,
And that's probably because people think differently.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But you show a map that there is, I think it's a C map that you said that probably that team get struggle at some time.
Yeah.
What we need to do to find if it's a mindset.
Yeah, what we do when the team C is one that has the future right in the right corner, right,
Exactly.
and the others there.
Exactly.
And we said that they will be always doing the same, not
Exactly.
evolving, right?
Probably it's a struggle.
What we do is it's sessions of coaching. So first, people identify themselves with their profiles,
And
see
you
the
said that.
advantages and vulnerabilities and all of that. And really, by doing this, people begin to identify why they do this way and why they are failing. And then by doing this and doing this conversation, because this is really a conversation about it.
Exactly.
Yeah, then people see, okay, then I need to adjust, yes, what are the strategies that I can adapt so that we as a team continue as a team and adjust our behaviors so that we are more collaborative, that we are more effective.
Because I can imagine that most of the conflicts, most of the time, it's completely different mindsets. They don't understand themselves, but if there is a third person that says, hey, you're talking about the same thing, let's do things like this, and it's like magic.
Yeah, let me tell you something, and it's regarding the conversation that we had about new ways to use MindTime. There's a person that joined the MindTime Foundation now. She's a psychotherapist, and she's testing MindTime within the couple therapy. And it's working quite well because people, you know, husband and wife, they play the cards and they are discovering something there. And now how can we close the bridges here? And it's very nice. Yeah, so for conflict management, it can be quite useful. Yeah, because it puts out in a very clear way, because people then talk about the words. We didn't have the time to do that because people talk about the words, what these words mean to me. Okay, in this specific context. And then it's a very courageous conversation sometimes.
There risk take, for example, that team that everybody was on the right, and there was only one future thinker, that the team organizes against that person because
Eventually.
yeah.
It's a black sheep.
What's more relevant, to have a nice balance between those profiles, or to have everyone fully aware of each other profile?
Ah, that's a good question. Well, I would say that first it's very good for everyone to be aware of the thinking styles, because it really avoids or minimizes potential conflicts, as we were saying, and it really maximizes the strengths and the value that each of them can bring to the team. Okay? About the mixture, it also depends on the projects and the circumstances. For example, if we are not an innovative company, or if we don't focus on doing so much innovation, why should I have 10 future thinkers and 1 present and 2 past? Then probably I should balance this more, right? Kind of. So what we need to do is to be very cautious also, to be quite aware of the challenges of the group, the team or the group, and according to that, see what's the best balance. But first, knowing each other's thinking style, it's a powerful tool.
Okay, should we close now? Sorry.
And you have here, please, if you want to.
With some contacts, Okay, thank you so much, Celeste. Thank you all for again. We will ask you for give us feedback now. We have some papers that you can fill and some insights, some things that we need to improve.
30 seconds.
Yeah, it's a quick thing. We will have someone on the door to deliver that. Thank you so much. Next meetup, 6th of February. Come and bring a friend with you. And thank you once again.
Thank you.